Alrighty. All right, so still in chapter 5 here. I reviewed everything last night. I should be able to get all this done in the next 2 weeks. So it's we got a lot to go still, but I think we can do it. Especially if we end where I think that we're going to end today. All right, so we've been talking about in the years between 750 BC and 500 BC. We just got done talking about Babylon's on the rise, right? So they're a rising nation, and we just got done talking about Assyria is trying to fight their way back over Babylon, and the Pharaoh of Egypt, Necho II, he wanted to go help Assyria to fight back Babylon up in Karamish or something like that, way up north. But he had to go through Judah first. And remember who was king back then of Judah? Josiah. Josiah was king. And you haven't read that far yet, Jesse? You did? Hey, I live it. I live it. How do you think I teach? I just, right there. That's how I teach, especially at school. All right. So yeah, he said no, and so he met him at Megiddo, and Josiah was killed. Right? He's killed in battle, and then his son, his son took over. But hey, okay. But it wasn't an all-out failure, right? Because Babylon still beat Assyria, and so this is pretty much the end of the mighty Assyrian Empire. So Babylon's claiming, hey Jed, Babylon's claiming all of Assyria's land, including Israel and Judah. Okay, and Babylon appoints kings to rule in Judah, which we're going to get into that more in detail today. But finally, we're looking at 586 BC. Fast forwarding just a little bit here. This is when Nebuchadnezzar attacks Jerusalem and pretty much razes it to the ground, all of it. Okay, and then pretty much all of Judah is sent into captivity, which is of course the prophecy, right? Which is what all these minor prophets were telling the kings of Judah and kings of Israel before all this happened. Okay, if you don't change your ways, you're gonna be conquered and taken captive, right? So let's go into here. This should work. I wasn't at school the last couple days because Aveline was sick, so I don't have my clicker with me. All right, so let's look at Jeremiah 52, 4 through 11 first. Okay, I'll let you get there real quick. I'm just gonna hit the high points though. So Jeremiah 52, 4 through 11. In these verses here, we're told that Jerusalem is under a 2-year siege from Babylon, right? The siege is where you pretty much surround the city and you cut off all the supply chains, all the water sources. Well, Jerusalem had cisterns, so that wasn't that bad for them. But you pretty much, you're not like attacking the whole time. You're just cutting off the trade routes and things like that. So as a result of that, Jerusalem is running out of food, right? That's even in Lamentations 4:4, where it mentions that they didn't have any food. I'll read that real quick. Let me get there. Lamentations 4:4, it says, because of thirst, the infant's tongue stick to the roofs of its mouth. The children beg for bread, but no one gives it to them. All right, so that's just saying that during that time they were very, very, very hungry. And then Babylonian soldiers break through the walls and send pretty much all of Judah's soldiers' forces running, including, this is when Jehoiakim was king, right? And so he was taken captive, right? All that stuff. And Zedekiah was put in place as king by Nebuchadnezzar. But he tries to rebel also, and then he runs away, which I'm going to get into this in a minute, okay? But anyways, he runs away. He is captured. His sons are killed right in front of him. He has his eyes poked out. Lovely. And he dies in prison. That's 2 Kings 25, 7 through 8, okay? But now, let's go back to Jeremiah 52. In verses 13 through 14, the Babylonians set fire on the temple and the palace and the house, and houses in every important building in Jerusalem. And they broke all of the walls down. That's Lamentations 1:1. And then in verse 17 through 19, we see that the Babylonians destroyed the temple in Jerusalem, and they take everything. They take all the gold, silver, all those precious things from the temple. But I want to look at this. I'm going to actually, there you go. That's kind of a nice artwork of what it might have looked like in Jerusalem back then. Okay. So we're going to compare what the Bible says about this, but also a secular piece. Okay, so let's go to, we're actually going to read this, all of it here. 2 Kings 24, 10 through 20. And someone can read that. 2 Kings 24, 10 through 20.
Went to Jerusalem and the city. I'm pretty loud. Let me start over. At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, went to Jerusalem, and the city came under siege. And Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, came to the city while his servants were besieging it. And Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, went to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and his captains and his officials. So the king of Babylon took him captive in the 8th year of his reign. And he carried out from all the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon king of Israel had made in the temple of the Lord, just as the Lord had said. Then he led away into exile all Jerusalem and all the captains and all the mighty men of valor, 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and the smiths. None remained except the poorest people of the land. So he led Jehoiakim away into exile to Babylon, also the king's mother and the king's wives and his officials and the leading men of the land. He led away into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. And all the men of valor, 7,000, and the craftsmen and the smiths, 1,000, all strong and fit for war. And these the king of Babylon brought into exile to Babylon. Then the king of Babylon made his uncle Mattaniah king in his place, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutah, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For though the anger of the Lord, this came about in Jerusalem and Judah until he cast them out from his presence. And Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon.
All right, so we got that. What the Bible says that Babylon was there. They took all these, all the officials, right? All these useful people, I'll say, right? Took all the treasures and stuff like that out of the temple. Left all the poor. Even put Zedekiah. Now, if Zedekiah was only 21, but he's also Jehoiakim's uncle, that's kind of weird, right? Like, how old is Jehoiakim at this time? I'm guessing Jehoiakim's dad had kids late, or or the grandpa kids late. Sorry, go ahead. 8. Well, there you go. There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So Jehoiakim's grandpa could have had a kid late, right? Yeah. I mean, my dad went to school with his aunt, to high school with his aunt. So, because his grandma had a kid late, which is funny. He called her aunt all the time, and she hated it. She hated it. All right, so let's look at this thing called the Babylonian Chronicle, or sometimes called the Nebuchadnezzar Chronicle. So this chronicle here makes it possible to assign the fall of Jerusalem to the second of Adar, which is somewhere around March 16th in 597 BC, with complete accuracy confirming the biblical accounts of the Babylonian attacks on Jerusalem. So that puts it between 597 and 586 BC. So here's what that says here. It says, in the 7th month of Nebuchadnezzar, around 599 BC, the month of Chislev, which is between November and December, somewhere around there, the king of Babylon assembled his army, and after he had invaded the land of Hatti, which is Syria and Palestine. Am I saying it right? Which one is the Texas version? Palestine? Okay, so Palestine is the one over there. Okay. I'm getting them confused because they're different, He laid siege to the city of Judah on the 2nd day of the month of Adara, which is 16th of March. He conquered the city and took the king Jehoiakim prisoner. He installed in his place the king Zedekiah of his own choice, and after he received tribute, he sent them forth to Babylon. Even in a secular, right, piece of text here, we can confirm that what happened in the Bible is true, right? This is what this book is about, right? Puts all the biblical things and secular things together. It makes sense and makes it all true, right? All right, so let's look at Babylon and Assyria. So what's the difference between Babylonian captivity of Jerusalem and Assyrian captivity of Israel? What's the difference? Jesse? No, I'm asking. Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Exactly right. Michael? You're getting way ahead of me, Mike. You're getting me way ahead of me. But you are correct, though. You are correct. Yeah. So in Jeremiah 52:15 through 16, and also in Jeremiah 52:24 through 30, right? This talks about this. Okay. So yeah, Babylonians brought back key leaders of Judah that were useful, right? And they could actually serve the king of Babylon. He left all the poor people behind, right? There's people who are unskilled, people like me. He'd leave back because they're not useful to the king. That's true. But Jesus hadn't said that yet. All right, so unlike Assyria, they didn't enslave everyone and make them all servants for manual labor. That's what Assyria did to Israel. But Babylon's like, this city is powerful for a reason. I need to use all those people for my benefit, right? So we eventually see people like Daniel rising up, right? As the head of the Magi. But we're not quite there yet. Okay, so there's more things going on in the world at this time during the siege of Jerusalem. At this time, we're going to turn to Greece for a second. All right, so Greece, they're not a unified country. There's a whole bunch of different city-states, and they're all warring with one another for great influence in the region. There are two key city-states in Greece at this time. You guys know who they were? Athens is one of them. Sparta. Athens and Sparta. That's right. So Sparta first. They were founded somewhere around 800 BC. They're a warrior society, right? I mentioned them back in chapter 4 here. They had kind of two kings going on at the same time. But they're pretty much a warrior society. If you ever, the movie 300 really brought a lot of attention to the Spartan way, right? It's not a biblical movie, but it still did, right? So they're located in the southwest part of the Peloponnese region, which is a large peninsula located southwest of Athens, and they controlled most of that region. So the red circle there is where Sparta is, and the little dot up there northeast of them is Athens. Okay, so they're known for their warrior ways, right? This is kind of a credo of theirs. It says, "Sweat more in practice, bleed less in war," right? So they're a very warlike people. I want to look at this first. So this is the requirements to get into West Point, and maybe Jed can also add to this too, right? I'm not saying West Point because we know you didn't go to West Point, right? But I want us to look at the admission for the U.S. military academy. Okay, so first of all, you all had to be legal citizens of the U.S. Okay, you had to be between the ages of 16 and 23. Okay, at West Point, cadets must be unmarried, not pregnant, and not under obligation to support any children. Gotta put a lot of focus in here, right, to your training. You had to have above high school average or college academic records, which I would never have gone to. I'm a bad test taker. I'm not saying I'm dumb, but I wouldn't have made it. You also had to have good scores on either the ACT or SAT. Okay. You also had to have good physical. You had to pass a physical, right? Like you have to pass the 300-yard run, 10 minutes of push-ups, a standing long jump, a basketball throw from a kneeling position, and pull-ups. Okay, there's a lot of requirements here, but I'm doing this because we're gonna look at what the Spartans did, right? How did you become a Spartan soldier? Okay, so first of all, they would just take baby boys to a Spartan elder, and examine them for defects to see if they were fit to live. Okay, fit to live. If the baby was unfit to live, they left it on a hillside in elements to die of exposure. So yes, they are known for their infanticide. The Spartans were. But if a baby is seen as fit, then his family, he stayed with his family until he was 7. Then he was taken to a military camp to be trained as a soldier. Okay, that's kids Lindsay's age. Can you imagine? Or like Samuel, right? How old is Duncan? Okay, well, he'd already been in there for 3 years. Okay, well, whatever. But yeah, he'd be trained to be a killing machine, right? So they would take kids from the family, kind of like the Jedi too, right? The Jedi would take kids from their families and train them, but they wouldn't kill the baby if they weren't seen fit for it. They just would leave them with their parents. All right, so when a kid turned 19, they would undergo a type of rite of passage where they had to secretly and sneakily kill a slave. They couldn't be seen. That was kind of their rite of passage. So if a student was successful, they were deemed fit to protect the city and joining the army. Okay, and Spartans were fearless and most skilled warriors in this part of the world. They were a fighting machine, right? And again, if you've seen the movie 300 or known about the Thermopylae Pass there, those 300 versus close to 1 million, I mean, wow. That's a cool story. Anyways, so then now let's go to Athens. So Athens is regarded as the first democratic system of government, right? Democracy, right? Demos means the people, and kratos, which means power. So people power, right? So the power extended from the people rather than wielded over them, like it with kings and stuff like that. This is an important. Oh, here's where Athens is. That green circle or that blue circle. Okay. This is an important development because in much of the ancient world, right, the state power came from the king, right, or the pharaoh, whoever is in charge, and some were even seen as a divine being, like in Egypt, right? The pharaohs, and we talked about in China, right, where their kings were kind of seen as a heavenly figure, right, as a godlike figure. But now we're seeing democracy in the world. Okay. And then again, in much of the ancient world, the state's power comes from a king, okay? But, however, Athens took power from a single leader and gave it to the people. Well, just the men. Just the men had power back then, right? That's a big difference, a big change from the modern world back then. So, but this is different from the democracy that we practice. I put that in bold letters, bold words, because everyone keeps saying that we are a democracy, right? We are not a democracy. I even had a student ask me at school. He said, "Mister, are we a democracy?" No, we are not. We use it. We're not one, right? We are a constitutional republic. But back on track here, okay? So they use direct democracy, right? Which is different, and rather than representative democracy. The people didn't get the vote for politicians to represent them. They had every law, everything to be voted for, like laws or war or things like that, were just sent directly to the men who were there, right? You weren't even really required to show up. You just, whoever was there, they voted on it, okay? And this actually limited the power from the officials. Okay. Now, how did they choose officials? Well, they chose by lot, right? When I taught this to my students, I said they pretty much put everyone's name in a hat, and they just reached in there and pull out a name. And Chuck, congratulations, you are now an official. And Chuck's like, oh, I didn't want to be that, right? And then you pull out someone else and say that, Mike Bullard, you're now. And Mike's like, yes, I wanted this all my life, right? So you could get a variety of people who want to do it and who don't want to do it, right? So that's kind of like anyone could hold this office, whether they were good or bad, or wanted it or not. Okay, this didn't let an elite class of people develop, like somewhere I know today, right? So, and that way it wouldn't be too difficult to actually get them from power, right? So, here's the big difference here. We see all the people down there on the bottom. All the vote comes directly from all the people, okay, which then led to the rules and laws of the nation. But the way that we use it, right, we vote for a representative to go to Washington or to the state, even to our own city councils, right? And then those people, based on our views, vote on the laws and rules and things like that. So that's the difference between how the ancient Athenians did it and how we use it today. All right, so During the same era, Pythagoras developed a theorem to determine the unknown length of one side of a right triangle, and then the other two sides lengths, when the other two sides lengths are known. You guys never thought I'd be bringing math into this, did you? Right? Math. Listen now. Yay, math. All right, so anyone know? We all know what this is, right? Jed, you know what it is? Oh, all right. Yeah, the Pythagorean theorem, right? So this is going on at the same time as Jerusalem is being sieged, right? Besieged. So and you guys never thought about that, did you? All those things in Greece are happening at the same time as what's going on with Babylon and Judah right now, okay? So Pythagoras was likely born in 530 BC on the island of Samos, which is off of Turkey, okay, modern-day Turkey. He likely traveled a lot when he was young. Eventually, he moved to Croton, which is a Greek colony in southern Italy, and he set up a religious sect based upon spiritual interest in mathematics. I know some people like math, but geez, I wouldn't worship it, right? But he assigned mystical significance to numbers. Okay, he believed that the spiritual world could be understood through the order and logic of math, right? Which I think blah, but that's just me. Because of this, music is very important to him, right? So he actually he saw musician pitches could be broken down and understood in light and mathematical ratios, right? So actually, all the roots for the musical scale is based off of this, right? He's also famous for saying this here. There is geometry in the humming of the strings. There is music in the spacings of the spheres. That made me think. That reminded me of a song that we sing from time to time. You guys think of it? He says, there is geometry in the humming of the strings. There is music in the spacings of the spheres. This is my fall's world, and to my listening ears, all nature sings, and around me rings the music of the spheres. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty neat. So his followers applied his math ideas to a bunch of different things, to medicine, to astronomy, even to natural science. Okay, his philosophy is highly influential in advancements in art and in construction. Where our thought processes come from, even to future discoveries and perspectives of the Earth's shape, right? All comes from this guy, from Pythagoras. So I guess I'll say yay math this one time. All right. So let's go on to Nepal. Okay, so we're just now talking about the blue area. That's where Judah is, and Israel, and Babylon, and Greece, all that there. But we're going to go focus on Nepal for a second, in the development of Buddhism during this time. Okay, so Buddhism is starting to build up in Nepal, this small little country in the Himalayan mountains. Okay, the Shakyas rule over the small region of the Himalayas. Suddhodana Gautama is the king of the region, along with his wife Mahamaya. Okay, she had a strange dream when she was pregnant with their firstborn kid. In this dream, a baby elephant blessed her with its trunk. So obviously we all know what that means, right? Because it's an important sign. She's going to give birth to a son, and he is going to be Siddhartha. That's his name, Siddhartha. After Siddhartha was born, his father, King Suddhodana took him to see Asita, who is a soothsayer, and he's trying to see what's going to happen in his son's future. Okay, so she proclaimed that he'll be one of two things. He'll either be a great king, an emperor, or he'll be a great sage and great spiritual leader. Okay, so of course his dad doesn't want him to be a spiritual leader, so he wants him to be a great king. So he shields him from anything that might lead him to pursue religion. Okay, does anyone know this story of Buddha? No? Okay. I want to see what you guys think. What do you think he's trying to shield him from then? If he doesn't want him to be a religious person, what is he trying to shield him from then? Yeah, Jesse. Oh. You gotta have a smile all the time when you're around the kid, right? What it seems like, but yeah, if you guys know anything about Buddhism, it's all about like getting rid of suffering, right? That's what it's all about. So he wasn't allowed to leave the palace for fear of seeing things that would pierce his heart, right? Like elderly people, people who are sick and who are dead, even other spiritual leaders, practitioners. Okay, he didn't want him to see all those things. His father wanted him to only see the beauty and health. Okay, he wanted him to be excited to rule this kingdom one day. Okay, but of course, he's probably around a teenager at this time. So when he grows up, he's a very skillful young man. He's part of the warrior caste. Remember, we talked about a long time ago in chapter 4, where there is a caste system around this region, right? You have like all the poor people and slaves on the bottom, of course, all the wealthy and the spiritual people who are on top, right? He's very good, and he has really good fighting skills too. But now it's time for him to marry. Wedding bells are ringing in his future. So he beat a lot of competitors in various sports. And he wins the hand of Yashodhara. Okay, she's a beautiful princess from a nearby kingdom, and they marry at 16 years old. Did anyone here marry when they were 16 years old? You did. You did too. I was 22 when I got married. People were calling me too young back then. You were there, Danielle. Right. I know. Yeah. Oh. Lots of apologies. All right, so, however, curiosity outside of the palace, it really grew on him. Like, what's happening out there, right? Just like any 16-year-old kid's gonna do, right? So, his father allowed him to leave the palace, but before that, he had all the sick moved away. He had all the elderly people moved away, so he wouldn't see those things, right? But during his ride through the capital, go ahead and try to pronounce that if you wish. He happens to see two old men who kind of wander on out on accident. Okay, he sees these old people. He's like, I've never seen this before. Right? He's amazed. He's confused. He doesn't know what they are, so he follows them. Right? He follows them. Next, he sees some severely sick people. And finally, he sees a funeral ceremony by the side of a river. This is the first time he sees death. So he sees elderly, he sees sick, he sees death, and he also sees monks, right, who are renouncing these fleshly desires, right? He sees all the things that his dad wanted him to not see, okay? So the look of peace on that monk's face, he's like, I kind of want that, right? He looks really calm and everything, right? So this is a famous painting that there is of this. So Siddhartha is the guy in the little chariot there. His little his sidekick is with him. Okay, his little squire. We see the guy meditating. That's the priest. Obviously, the skeleton is death, and there's a sick guy right over there. So he sees all the things that he wasn't supposed to see. Okay. At 29, Siddhartha realizes he cannot be happy living the way that he was. So he saw suffering and now wants to discover how one might overcome suffering. So while his wife is sleeping, he leaves. He leaves his wife and his son. And what he goes to do, he also gets rid of all of his rich status, right? He gets rid of his clothing, he cuts his hair, he gives his horse to his best friend, his squire guy who actually leaves with him from the palace. And he starts a long journey on which he finds nirvana, right? That is that state of inner peace and perfect harmony. So this is when he's called the Buddha, right? He's meditating, right? It's famous for him sitting under a tree, right? Meditating under a tree, where he sits there and meditates until he finds nirvana, right? So he's like, there's no more suffering in his life, see? And Buddhism is practiced by millions of people around the world. To this day, I actually used to work with somebody who was Buddhist. So this is the usual symbol, right, that we see. We usually kind of see a fat figure for Buddha, right? We call it like a Buddha belly if someone has a big old, gut or something. But that's actually the Americanized version of it. The actual version is like that big old golden statue, which is like the largest Buddha statue in the world, right? It's not even fat at all. It's just a golden figure, nice and lean, right? And there he is sitting under a tree, finding nirvana, okay? So let's go to our question here about this. So we're going to go to 4 different verses, okay? 4 different people here. So one of them is Isaiah chapter 9, 6 through 7. The second one is Psalms 29, verse 11. The third there is Romans 8, 18, and then 1 Peter 4, 13. Okay, so pick one. You need to read one? Okay. So we're looking at how does Buddhism differ from the Bible in its teachings about peace and suffering. So whoever has Isaiah 9 can read first. I think we can see a little connection there, right, with the story of Buddha and, of course, Jesus, right? I'm not saying he is Jesus. I'm not saying that, okay? I'm saying that there's a similarity, right there. All right, let's go to Romans 8:18. Whoever has that can go ahead and read it. Okay, so what does this verse say about suffering? I agree. What is this saying here? Like, suffer is like, sure, I think it's saying, right, we're all going to suffer. We currently suffer, but we got something better coming, right? That's what it's saying, right? And that's kind of what Buddhism is, right? They want to get rid of the suffering, right, and reach nirvana at some point. Let's go to, I missed Psalms 29:11. Okay. So, and then let's go to 1 Peter 4:13. So we kind of see a difference here, right? How do the Buddhists deal with suffering? They try to ignore it, yeah. But also, are they reaching for something for help with the sufferings? No. It's for themselves, right? They say, I'm going to find it myself. I'm going to reach nirvana, right? But how do we handle suffering as Christians? Yeah, we know we can't do it alone, right? That's why we reach to Christ. We reach to God to help us with these sufferings, just to get us through it. We're not trying to get rid of them. I think we understand that we're just gonna have sufferings, right? But as long as we pray, as long as we ask God for help, He's gonna get us through these things. And that's kind of a big difference there between Buddhism and Christianity, right? So we got to exactly where I wanted to stop. So next week we'll pick up from right there.